Record live show on Western TV. It comes your way every Mondays to Fridays, right from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock with Mifarish Majid, where on some days we bring you guests to also analyze on some of those critical matters which we feel you must be able to also understand in depth there, and that is where usually we bring for you guests in areas of politics, areas of economy, and areas of social life. All in all, that is to keep you informed, entertained, and educated as well. And that is the reason as to why the KOKOLIRIKO live show is always live on your screens each and every mornings on Mondays to Fridays. And we take this opportunity now to say once again, welcome aboard. And this is where we should be also waiting to see what is happening on the papers, because definitely I'll be in position today to give you what is happening on the different papers, and this is to also help you analyze and understand what is happening in the entire country. And summarizing the entire discussions, I will be with the world of sports. I do understand Arsenal Football Club, after falling out to Bournemouth, will be tackling it again tonight against Shakhtar Donetsk. That is again in the Champions League, and I will be letting you know how that will be also going on, and maybe what are some of the teams that will be playing today. And that only will be coming towards the evening of the show. And this is where I want to say welcome aboard. It's a bright morning. If at all you are still on your bed, you must wake up and move out to go hustling, and also get something small that you want to also attain during the due course of the day in there, because the sun is already up and the cock crow did go earlier on, and that is where we not expect to still to keep in bed. But rather to also wake up to go and look for survival, and look also for what you want to also get at the end of the day in there, because if at all you are going to be keeping on that bed, trust me, there's no way you're going to be getting it on that bed other than also moving out to go hustling, because usually we say it is the early bird that catches the fly, and that means to you who is still maybe in bed, you may not be that early bird who may catch up the worm, who may not also be supposed to catch up the fly, and you'll be able to miss out, which wouldn't be good for you. But all in all, we are saying wake up and go start hustling. And that therefore brings us to the first topic. And this is also on the monitor, where we are seeing where the minister, the KCA boss on that Nkitezi landfill deal, is another story that definitely we are seeing on the past morning, where the Minister of Kampala Metropolitan Affairs, Minsa Kabanda, has directed the acting executive director of Kampala Capital City Authority, the Mr. Frank Rusa, to implement what we call a cabinet directive. That's on the Chitezi landfill deal in there. Now, Ms. Kabanda, in October 15th letter, seen by also Monitor, informed Mr. Rusa that the cabinet had also okayed the handing over of Chitezi landfill to Ghanaian firm, that is Jospong group of companies, for decommission. Therefore, what is awaiting is now executing. And the minister's directive came a day after the KCA boss told Monitor that they have not been handed over the Chitezi landfill to Ghanaian firm, as it was announced by Minsa Kabanda's deputy, Mr. Kabuye Chofatagobie, recently. And that means this is therefore a call to also remind them that they have to hand over the Chitezi landfill to a Ghanaian firm for decommissioning. That means we are going to be seeing how this will therefore be ending. Mr. Russo also told the journalists at the weekend that he had forwarded the proposed memorandum of understanding with the firm to the Attorney General for advice. Therefore, he wouldn't also want to engage in this bill, maybe without necessarily informing the other stakeholders, because if you engage anyhow, then the entire burden may also come back and slip on you. And Ms. Kabanda, in the latest directive, however, remind the acting KCA boss that the entire process was okayed by the cabinet on October 14th of this year, and therefore it is prudent for them to solely hand over this deal in here. And that is where we are going to be seeing also. But what do you think about the entire issue of handing over this facility that is to the Ghanaian firm for decommissioning? Is it right? Is it the right move? Will it address future occurrences of such disasters that happened, where many people also lost their life in there? And that is where also we hope you can also be able to share your ideas and share your thoughts also on this discussion in there. And that is where we shall be seeing also that discussion going on. And we are also seeing here, and we are seeing a story here where NRM PRO filmed also slapping a police officer has been remanded, and that is where we're seeing a charge of robbery have also been slapped against her for slapping a traffic officer. And that is one thing also we feel we must also really be able to understand, that the law is not also really on your side, and there's nobody entirely who is above the law. Sometimes when we get these offices, we tend to forget that we are human beings. We tend to think that we are special and also really above everyone, and that is where we're now seeing a 38-year-old woman in trouble after she was filmed assaulting a traffic officer who was on duty, and now she has been remanded to Luzira Government Prison after she was charged with reckless driving, failure to comply with police officers' directives, and using a motor vehicle without third-party insurance, and that has landed her in trouble. And Mercy Timbitwire, a public relations officer in the office of the ruling NRM movement, National Resistance Movement Secretariat, is also accused of using mobile phone robbery. And she was on Monday arraigned before the Nakawa Chief Magistrate, that is Elias Kakoza, where she was denied bail and slapped with the charges in there. Now, according to the charge sheet, the prosecution states that Timbitwire on October 18th of 2024, at about 12 hours at Makerere University Business School on Newport Bell Road in Kampala district, was intercepted driving a Toyota Land Cruiser registration number UBM 4390 recklessly by also driving it without a third party, while also held a mobile phone, and she was also driving that. And these are all rules against the traffic rule. These are all rules against the traffic driving rules and procedures, and failing therefore to comply with the directives given by the officer on duty was again another violation of these traffic regulations. And therefore, when she failed to stop, we all know what happened. She was filmed, and that film was also really circulated, which did go on viral in there. Now she has been also really slapped with the assault charges, and the police summoned Charlie Goza for also assault. That is also where we did see also over the cases, and these are cases which we have seen over the years where people have also been able to assault police officers, and we did have ministers also of both, and that is where we did see at one time also really Major General Lokech also was held for assaulting a traffic officer. But why is it that people in offices, maybe in security at times, also tend to forget that the traffic officers are doing their duty? Why is it people tend to forget and undermine these traffic officers is also what we need to understand. And why is this happening? And how can we be in position to also address on some of these issues in here? Now, that is where we did see also Timbitwire, also at Lugogo, Kampala Jinja Highway, drove the car without any insurance prescribed by law for her to use that car. And in a separate case, Timbitwire was charged alongside Bernardine Abangire, a 34-year-old administrator at Bagher Wright Holdings Limited, with robbery and also assaulting a police officer in the execution of his duty. And the prosecution therefore states that the duo on October 18th of this year at Uma Showground, Nakawa Division, Kampala, robbed also the number 63061 PC Charles Makawa of his 2 mobile phones valued at 800,000 and EPS printer machine valued at 14 million, and the property which belongs to Uganda Police Force. And also immediately after that time of the said robbery, did go on to assault the officer who was on duty, and therefore the duo were denied bail also, and the charges. However, they also did go on to deny these charges. However, now the magistrate remanded them until 4th of November, where their case again will be heard in there. But really, how do you also really tend to see yourself in trouble? Just because you think you are above the law. This is what we are always seeing with some of these people. More so, these people who are also in these offices, which they feel they matter a lot. But we are saying, why must you now therefore land yourself in trouble? These are avoidable troubles. And I don't say these are really avoidable troubles, and which people must also be in position to also really be able to desist from. And that is where if they desist from, then we are likely to see them also really be able to avoid troubles. And that's where we're saying you must not forget to be human as you in these offices. Being human is first, and therefore we must always be in position to also really understand that we're human beings. This is not the only case where we're seeing maybe a police officer is being assaulted. I did mention 3 cases where Major General at one time was also really held for that, the late. We did see also Minister Both, who was at one time also really held for that. And then Charlie Gonza, who also is a soldier, at one time also did go on viral for still assaulting a police officer in there. But all in all, why must we see these cases go on? How can we be in position to also avoid these cases? That is quite important. And leaving that discussion aside, now heading to the Noop camp, Olivia Lutaya, 15 others have been convicted of treachery, and these are the National Unity Platform Party supporters, where with this now the Court General Marshal in Machindi has convicted 16 National Unity Platform Party supporters on charges of unlawful devices and treachery in there. Now the army chaired by Brigadier, the army court chaired by Brigadier Freeman Mugabe convicted Olivia Lutaya, Rashid Seguja, Robert Ragumayo, Muhyiddin Kakoza, Simon Kijambu, Abdul Matovu, and others upon their own plea of guilty during what we call court proceedings held in camera. A lawyer who also attended court told also this journalist this prosecution, and that is where we always see court martials being denied access to the media, and that is where we feel the media is being left out. How do these proceedings go on without the involvement of the media? And that is where we are saying, let the civilians be tried in civilian courts. If at all media cannot be able to solely be allowed to see what is happening indeed in these courts, then I feel it is quite important for us to be seeing maybe civilians should be tried in those courts, even if the crimes they commit are a bit also really militant in there. Now other convicts are Misat Chiwanuka, Ibrahim Wandera, Asbat Nagwere, Steve Masafu, Masafa Kalu, Sharif Matovu, Davis Mafabi, Livingston Katushabe, Chigozo Shoaib Kitabi, Stanley Luanga. We are seeing Siraj Olubaye, Obalai, Joseph Muganza, Paul Mwanguzi, and these are the people who have also been arrested. Now the group has been also on remand for 4 years, previously pleaded guilty and sought presidential pardon, but update, nothing has been done. Now during the Monday proceedings, which usually where we are inaccessible to journalists, Brigadier Mugabe also did go on to remind the convicts until Wednesday when they will be appearing for sentencing. And now the suspects were first remanded on charges of unlawful possession of 13 explosive devices following their arrest between November 2020 and 21 of also this 2021, before additional charges of treachery were slapped on them. And then that means they have been also several of their bail applications dismissed before the army court also largely found ground that their sureties were not substantial. And prosecution also alleged that between November 2020 and May 12 of 2021, in diverse areas within Jinja, Mbale, Chireka, Nakulabye, Kampala Central, the accused were also arrested in possession of the 13 explosive devices, which were ordinarily a monopoly of the defense forces. And that is where we did see them being arrested for. And some of the Noop supporters were as well arrested from district of Kalangala while on the campaign trail of the presidential candidate. That's Robert Chagulanyi Sentamu, commonly known as Bobby Wine, who is the president for Noop in there. And now, meanwhile, the same court also granted bail to Mr. Chagulanyi's private bodyguard, that is Achileo Chivumbi, who has been on remand for months, but now has been granted bail. And Chivumbi is also accused of unlawful possession of military pips. Was on Monday also ordered also to pay shillings 2 million cash bail from leaving Kampala without the army court premises, and was barred also as well from leaving Kampala in there. That means his freedom is only limited within a certain period in there, and then certain area where he is not also where we want also been positioned to also leave Kampala as the investigation into his matter also continue in there. And that is what we are seeing. And then another story we are seeing, 3 mourners die in Busia after trailer crashes taxis. Another story we are seeing, 3 people have also been confirmed dead, which is really on a quite sad note. Following a road crash, that is at Bohobe village in Namogonde Town Council, Busia district. That was on Sunday night. In all the deceased have been identified as 2 traders, Winnie Namasubo and Jane Auma, who is a nurse at one of the facilities in Busia town. And this is where we are seeing the 3, however, also have been all residents of Mayombe village, Dabani sub-county in Busia district. And this is where we are seeing the likes of Aida Namude have lost also their lives in there. Now the crash occurred when a Busia-bound commuter taxi registration number UBQ 489E, in which the deceased were also traveling, collided with the trailer, which is number KBW which is a Kenyan truck, 53H. And the victims were also allegedly returning home after attending a burial of one of the traders in Sophia Market in Chugowe village in Mukolo district when the crash happened in there, which is really quite sad. And Mr. Isaac Mando, who survived also the road crash, said the trailer had also one red lamp and was mistaken for a motorcycle by the taxi driver. And that is why we're saying always people must desist from tendencies of driving cars with one light. Because you have seen the challenges. People may also be in position to also really see this. Now that this has caused an accident, I hope the owners and the drivers of the truck will therefore know why it is dangerous to drive vehicles with one lamps. And that is where people may mistake them for motorcycles, and at the end of the day ram into them, and that will find it very difficult. And that's where we expect now the driver of what we call the trailer must also be arrested and held responsible for causing this road accident. And now the driver of the taxi, who was only identified as Rashid, was rushed to an unknown health facility in Kenya after sustaining several injuries on his hands and head. And Eliud Tabo, a relative of Namasubo, said the accident should have occurred just before midnight because his brother, who is the husband of the deceased, had reportedly kept in touch with her but became suspicious when she took too long to arrive home. And Yona Onyango, a son to the late Auma, described the mother's death as shocking, saying the deceased was everything to him and single-handedly supported his education while encouraging him to stay at school and to work hard. Now she is gone. Who exactly is going to be taking care of this young man who is also already being taken care of this by the mother? And the police were to also release a statement by press time. However, relatives of the deceased gathered at Busia Health Center 4 and the Bani Hospital, where the bodies were taken for post-mortem, to have their bodies be handed over to them for burial in there. But we are saying truck drivers, more so those who know their vehicles have faults, please keep off the roads. And that is where we expect traffic police to expedite the process of doing patrols on these roads to find out whoever is driving a vehicle with one red lamp, with one lamp, should be arrested, because in most cases these are the causes of accidents, and that is why we find it very difficult to also really deal with some of these cases. And at the end of the day, what we see is we see lives being lost, which is really quite absurd. And these are life deaths that which could, in other words, be avoided, but we are now losing the people just because the ones who are supposed to be mindful are not doing whatever is expected out of them. And what does that mean? We are going to be seeing people losing their lives, which may not be right. And how can we be in position to also really avoid certain of these deaths? And all in all, we are saying, do one thing. All you need to do is to make sure that you do not drive the vehicles with those mechanical conditions. It may not be yours, may not be lamp. It may be brake. It may be other things. So let's avoid all those, because at the end of the day, we are going to be causing losses, we are going to be causing deaths, and yet it's avoidable deaths. And that would also be very well. If at all your car is no lab, please, if you cannot repair it, then drive during daytime, where if it closes night, park. It's okay for you to park and also wait for the morning also to come, so that you can be bouncing back on the road, where everybody will be able to also know that this is indeed a car coming. And that is why we are saying people must now be in position to also understand and listen to also these concerns and queries that are being also given out, to also make sure that at least people are not also losing their lives. And just like also these women and these traders who are from Barrio, now we have lost them, which is really quite difficult. And we are going to be on that side and now look at some of the stories happening elsewhere. Magistrate State Attorney to testify against rescue, and that's where we're seeing now the state asked Balondemu's lawyer to rescue self from forgery case. And that's where we're now seeing the state prosecution case, which also embattled chairperson of Kampala Director Land Board, Mr. David Balondemu, is accused of forgery, has asked court to have one of his lawyers rescue himself in there. Now the jail land boss had appeared before the presiding Buganda Road Chief Magistrate Ronald Kaizi for hearing of his bail application. However, prosecution led by Ms. Farala Tuisingure asked the case also to be deferred, arguing that she had also already asked the case to be deferred, arguing that she did not also have police file, and she also therefore argued that she needed more time to allow Mr. Balondemu's counsel, Mr. Robert Bautu, rescue himself from the case in there, and that is one thing where we did see Mr. Kaizi for that being remanded also for until Wednesday for that charge in there. And it's also at court. Also say that and also did go on to reveal that a list of prosecution witnesses, including among the witnesses to be produced in court, is the third attorney, Kedwan Magistrate, and also one lawyer also in the names of Mr. Bautu to also appear in court to also address some of this matter. That is one thing also which we are seeing happening in the morning papers, and I will be also leaving that aside and still looking at what's happening in the Monitor. We are still seeing government to crack down on trafficking among Ugandan pilgrims, which is also another story we are seeing on the paper this morning, where government is said to be moving down to crack on trafficking among Ugandan pilgrims, which is another story that we are seeing happening, where Ugandan also agencies have vowed to crack down also on human and drug trafficking among the country's pilgrims on foreign soil. In the state authorities, mostly those concerned with diaspora affairs, say they are dismayed by growing rates of racketeering, human and trafficking cases involved among Ugandans in there, and that is where they also did go on to raise concern. Now the envoy also says that the country must exercise high degree of action to combat humans and also drug trafficking, which are really crimes beyond borders in there. And what also be further disclosed also that a delegation from the Ugandan presidency and Ministry of Gender is due to travel also to the Gulf region, soon to engage Middle East also countries in ending illegal schemes or what we call organized crimes, risking Uganda's global dispute. And that is the repute, and that is one thing we are seeing in there. On October 19th, Ugandan diaspora also stakeholders, including the presidency, foreign affairs, immigration and labor recruitment agencies, met in Kampala to also deliberate on means of preventing entry and exit of narcotics through annual Hajj and Umrah pilgrims, and that is one issue that we are seeing. And available government data suggests that drug lords lure desperate Ugandans, mainly women, into pilgrims drug trafficking businesses in Saudi Arabia, India, China, among other countries. And on Saturday, Intelligence Director, Brigadier Christopher Damulira, told a gathering of more than 300 high-ranking government officials in Kampala that security agencies are considering an advanced technology to detect and prevent trafficking, and that is one issue that we are seeing. And on her part, Labour State Minister Esther Nyakun decried tales of human exploitation during her recent visit to the Gulf in there, where so many people are being also cheated. And Uganda's Deputy Ambassador to Saudi Arabia, Suleiman Gugwa, pledged stronger partnerships with global human trafficking agencies, as he called on also all parties to focus on creating comprehensive solutions to the matter in there. And that is where we are also really seeing that. And annually, customs officials seized drugs valued at a range of also about 100 billion from Ugandan drug lords, and that's where we're seeing also many people also being arrested as well every year in there. But how do we also avoid ourselves from landing such troubles? Because many times we have seen some people being arrested innocently, others not even know what they are carrying on their bags, only to be arrested. And that is where we find it difficult also to address on some of these issues. And that is where before you travel, before even somebody lures you to travel abroad, you must be in position to solely understand what maybe risks you're about to engage yourself in. Because many times people tend to solely pack wrong belongings on your bags, and if at all you're arrested, it will be you to be arrested for those drugs unknowingly. Recently I was able to see a video on social media on how a lady was pretending to be very, very much sick, yet this lady was actually a drug lord. So I think let's learn from that before we land into trouble, maybe land into trouble, because somebody may be in position to ask your help, only to pack these items in your bag. And it will be you to also find yourself in trouble. And that is where we must always guard our luggage very jealously. If at all you are to travel abroad, we must be in position to guard our luggage very, very jealously in there before we land in trouble. Because some of these drug lords may be able to also be who are caring, and that is where at the end of the day they will be putting you in trouble. And that brings us to the end of this hour, and we are going to be taking a short commercial break. That will be ushering us into our second hour of the discussions. This is the KOKOLIRIKO live on West Nile TV, channel 477 on StarTimes, where we are also live on other social media platforms, where we are live on YouTube, We are live on X. You can still be in position to solely watch us on TikTok. And that brings us to the end of these discussions. We are going to be continuing with the discussions in the second hour of the show. My name is Farish Majid. Stay tuned as we bounce back shortly.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region. Vinicius Jr., Lamine Yamal, Antoine Griezmann. La Liga comes to Star Times.
A wild celebration!
The big stars, the tiki-taka football, Real Madrid and Barcelona live in your living room.
Real Madrid, a team of dreams!
Catch all 380 games live and in HD on Sports Premium, Channel 259 and Channel 246. Starting this August 15th. Subscribe to StarTimes Classic or Smart Bouquet at 36,000 Uganda shillings to enjoy the football experience affordably. StarTimes Football and limited passion.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, welcome back from the short commercial break. We are 5 minutes after 8 o'clock. This is the KOKOLIRIKO live show on West Nile TV channel 477. And of course, our final destination remains 9 o'clock. And after 9 o'clock, that's when I'll be signing out of here and leaving the studios for the next team to come through. That is of the Areas and News team. And thereafter, we shall be having the Northern Request Hour and many other interesting programs that will also be coming still on your way this Tuesday morning in here. And that is where we hope also, as the viewer, you will be able to also catch up with those programs depending on what suits you in here. Because all in all, we are catered across all aspects where we also want to entertain you. That's where all these programs are coming. Information, it's why I am here, and then the news bulletin also still will be coming through later on in here. And all in all, we are aiming to keep making sure that you are touched in all aspects of life. And that is one beauty which we must also be in position to solely interest ourselves in. And that is where, at the end of the day, we shall be in position to solely understand what is really good for us to solely develop the country with, because we have the duties and we have the obligations of developing the country by ourselves. And how can we be able to solely change this? It is simply through doing what is expected out of us. And that is where in position, at the end, we shall be in position to solely transform our lives in the best way possible in there. And remember, it being a Tuesday, tonight we shall be seeing games returning. I will be letting you know some of those games that will be played tonight, but that only will be coming through in the evening of the show. And that is where we shall be in position to also really understand what is happening in there. And leaving that discussion aside, SFC soldier shoots 3 dead in Agago is another story we're seeing, which is really quite sad. And really, I don't know why this is happening. And at the end of the day, I don't know how we can be able to really address some of these issues where soldiers, in most cases, lose their tempers. And how can we deal with these issues? Because this is not the very first time we are talking about an issue of a soldier shooting others. Recently, it happened in Machindi. And again, we are now seeing this happening. How can men in uniform also be able to be avoided also from, or maybe this activity is happening? And this is where we're now seeing the UPDF together with the police have kicked off with investigations into circumstances under which a soldier also shot 3 people dead and injured 2 others in there. Now, according to UPDF 5th Infantry Division spokesperson Captain Edwin Mawanda, the incident happened around midnight, that's on Sunday, when Private Bonnie Amey escaped from his place of work, that's at Locom Detached, and went to Ngora East Village, that's in Ngora Parish, Paimoe Sub-County in Agago District, where he shot 5 people in there. And that is where we did see preliminary investigations already indicates that Private Amenoi Boni, a 45-year-old, had misunderstanding with his wife, that is one Angom Betty, who escaped solely from him. And it is further alleged that also he went on one rampage, that is to shoot on everyone who could have also really kept her in there. And that is where we did see that happening. How do we always, how can we be able to maybe deal with this issue of soldiers losing their tempers over women? Because this is not the very first time we are seeing this happening. And in most cases, we have not seen the soldier women doing this. But it's always the men who are doing this. Does it mean that the soldiers who are women are more obedient than the men? Definitely, I think yes, because we've never seen soldiers who are women doing such crimes. And that is where we hope also they continue with this behavior, and we pray that they do not become like their male counterparts. And that is where we did see the deceased identified as Apio Sunday, 25-year-old, Akidi Santino, 47-year-old, Ajalo Florence, who is a 16-year-old, where their bodies have now been taken to Dr. Ambresoli Memorial Hospital in Kalongo for postmortem, while the injured, including Kidenga Charles Kumaket, who is 47-year-old, and Apio Janet, 20-year-old, have been taken also still to Ambresoli Memorial Hospital, Kalongo, for further management in there. But how do we see these issues happening? And how can we be in position to solely handle these issues where soldiers who are supposed to be protecting the masses also going on rampage to also be the ones to really delete them out? Because this is one issue which I feel must also be able to maybe paint us an image of how maybe we should be able to deal with these soldiers, because we definitely know what they usually, maybe how they can be able to solely turn and do bad when also they lose their tempers in there. And that is where killing is very easy for these soldiers. Why is it happening that way? How can we be able to solely avoid something? If a woman does not want you, is that the best way maybe you can deal with that? Is it a good gesture for you to kill them? It's really very much wrong. And that is where we are saying soldiers must be always in position to solely avoid some of these activities, and also diseaseful practices of taking the laws into their hands. And that is where, if somebody, maybe somebody leaves you, please go on and look for another one. I always tell my friends, if anyone leaves you, please feel free to move on and find another one. And that is still where you will be in position to solely still get maybe love again. And that is where we feel people must also really be able to solely deal with those issues. And that is where we are saying people must not be able to take the laws in their hands and be able to solely deal with those issues in there. And that is where we are hoping that you will be in position still to understand and leave those issues aside in there. Now, UAE passenger bus baggage clearance at Entebbe Airport. Earlier on, I was talking about the issue of human and trafficking. Now, the Uganda Revenue Authority has rolled out new measures aimed at streamlining passenger baggage clearance. That is at Entebbe International Airport, which will be taking place from effective 1st of 2024. And these updates already, which did also take effect early this year around July 1st. And these updates align with amendments that is the East African Community Customs Management Act, which is the IACMA, including the passenger baggage, exempt from terrestrial also from US $500 to US $2,000 for travelers who have been out of the country for more than 24 hours. And now in a statement, URI highlighted also that the exemption applies strictly to personal items in the passenger's names and does not cover gifts or goods needed for commercial purposes. That means they are also going to be facing these charges in there. Now, with the increasing numbers of flights connecting Uganda to major trading hubs like China, India, Dubai, Turkey, and UAE, not that rise, that is in non-compliance. Now, some places have been disguising commercial goods as personal baggage to benefit from tax exemptions, and that is where we did see URA also talking about that. And Robert Kalumba, URA's Assistant Commissioner for Public and Corporate Affairs, explained that these new measures are designed to curb such practices while ensuring smooth customs clearance. And now the updated procedures also set strict limits on the weight of commercial goods that can be also really carried as passenger baggage, and goods exceeding 500 kilograms or with commercial value will be transferred to cargo terminal for normal customs clearance. And these items include phones, perfumes, motor vehicle spare parts, IT equipment, and goods belonging to companies. And that means we are likely to see the prices of phones going up. And indeed, the ones for the second-hand phones have already gone up, where phones recently, which we used to buy at 300,000, are now costing 400 or 350 just because of these taxes. And where this is going to be leaving the final users, because we're talking about ICT, and ICT without these gadgets is really a dream, and a dream which we cannot also be able to solely achieve in there. But how can we see these taxes going on, and how are these taxes going to be affecting the final user of these items? Because let's look at the smartphones. I want to interest myself with the smartphones, most of the second hands, which we have also really seen the prices have been a bit moderate, but now we are going to be seeing that also already going up. And now returning Ugandans, also residents who have also lived abroad for at least a year, will be allowed to bring back personal and household effects, tax also free, provided the goods are for personal use and are not contraband. And however, URA warned that such items, such as used refrigerators, computers, and televisions are banned and will not be forfeited upon entry. That means those who are carrying fridges are not also allowed. Computers and televisions will be banned also in there. Now, URA has called travelers to formalize themselves with these charges to avoid inconveniences, emphasizing that compliance will lead to quicker and more efficient customs process at the airport. And that is what Uganda Revenue Authority, which is the body mandated to also collect taxes on behalf of the citizens in this country, is actually saying. That is to the people who are planning to travel. And to you who is planning to travel out of the country, definitely you must be in position to solely wait for this and be in position and be in position to also find these charges at the airport. Other than that, you may also be caught unawares, which may not be right for you in there. And that is where we are saying all this to also make sure that you are prepared and also in the know of what you are likely to also find your way as you are planning to travel out of the country. And that would also be very, very much good for you to also be able to also be with. And that is where we're going to be leaving that discussion aside. And still within the airport, we are still seeing airport also charges increasing. And this is for the parking fees. And those who have also been able to park their cars still at Entebbe Airport, we are seeing now the parking fees also increasing. And all this is going to be negatively having an impact on the traveler. Now Uganda Civil Aviation Authority has increased the parking fees at Entebbe International Airport. Now the new charges will take effect next month, that's November 1st. And the current rates, which have been in place since October 1st of 2009, will stand until then. And now saloon cars and station wagons, most of this will now pay first hour charges of 2,000 shillings, but in the new fees, they will be required to pay 5,000, while minibuses, super customs and van drivers currently pay 4,000, but they will be required now to pay 8,000, which is also the doubleation and the new charges. And meanwhile, the amount for buses, lorries, trailers, and trucks will increase. That's from 5,000 to 10,000. That is by the first hour, and that also will be going on. And somebody will be asking themselves, why is this happening now? And now the few new fees directly also has attracted mixed reactions from members of the public, especially the airport's frequent travelers. And the Director General of Uganda Civil Aviation Authority, Mr. Fred Bamwesije, in an August also said from January to June 2024, a total of 15,203 aircraft movements were recorded compared to 14,575 in January of 2023. Meanwhile, flights, we are from 12,359 from January to June of 2024 compared to the 11,203 captured from January to June of 2023. The money that Uganda Civil Aviation Authority generates revenues, including car parking fees, is injected into the upgrading of the airport infrastructure, according to Mr. Lujia, also in there. But how is this going to be impacting on that regular traveler, more so the drivers? We have airport taxi operators. How is it going to be impacting on them? And how is this going to be impacting on that person who is also seeking to travel abroad? And that is where we are going to be also really talking about these issues. And this is to make sure that people also really get the necessary help. And that is where at the end of the day it will be also really very much important for them to also really see to it that they get also really the negative, the positives of definitely also really moving to some of these places in there. And that is where we are going to be looking at some of the stories in there. And I hope at the end of the day, people still will be in position to also really deal with some of these issues in there. And that's where we are saying Ugandans have been urged also to embrace professional eye care, is another story we're seeing. Remember recently we had the World Eyesight Day, which was also in a rural city in here, and many people actually came for this day. And I was able to also see a woman whose story had been for 8 years without seeing. And during this eye surgery she was in position to now have sight again. And that is one area which we feel people must also be able to benefit from. And now that is where, with the increasing number of different cases, eyesight complications, opticians have now been urged to also really seek, urge people to seek professional eye care solutions to assist them achieve proper sight and correct sight problems already in some instances. And now also that was already, remark was made while opening the 16th optical shop, that's for Lapea Africa in Uganda, in collaboration with Vivo Energy in Entebbe Kitoro on Monday, where Mr. Oliver Mwanko, the company's communications officer, said the professional eye care helps detect vision problems and determine what we call corrective prescriptions for people in there. And that means if at all you have eyesight problems, you should be able to solely get the professional eye care. And that is where at the end of the day your eye problems are going to be corrected in there. Mr. Kenneth Tunami Masiko, Lapea Uganda's operations manager, said the company is opening optical shops in key areas to bring quality eye care close to the people across the country who perceive eye care as both expensive and difficult to access in there. And that is where we did see also the Lapea marketing director, Ms. Rosalind Chilonzo, said the new Entebbe branch that has been opened embodies the brand's custom-centric and one-stop also shop approach, also offering stylish eyewear that's at also fair prices, and that is where people who love glasses will now be in position to sort of move and get those glasses also that they may also want to put on in there, that is to correct their eye vision. And that is where we're going to leave that discussion aside and still looking at some of the stories happening elsewhere. Government to build 17 new markets in Greater Kampala is another story that we are seeing this early morning, where government is said to build at least 17 new markets in Greater Kampala, and the government has also stepped up plans to establish 17 new markets, that's in the Greater Kampala areas, and the markets which will be established also will cost about 2.1 trillion. That is under also the Metropolitan Area Urban Development Program that will be built in Kampala, Wakiso, Mukono, and in PG districts, and that's where we are going to be seeing these areas receiving new markets. And as part of the plans, Minister of Kampala Capital City and Metropolitan Affairs has embarked on consulting and also training leaders and beneficiaries of these areas to manage the markets. And during the training, we did see also the community development officers that they have also been advised and also trained on how these projects also will be going on in there. And that's where we hope also these markets will be also constructed. And the program is looking at creating more business also zones, so that currently also people will be employed in the markets, and then revenue, which is also like local revenue, also will be generated from these markets in there. Now the Undersecretary of Ministry of Kampala Capital City Authority and Metropolitan Affairs, Ms. Monica Ejua, urged the local government leaders to strengthen the management also of the markets by ensuring that they have the land titles and management also committees, among others. That's where we did see Ms. Monica Edemachaku Ejua, also with the Undersecretary, that's of Ministry of Kampala Capital Authorities, also making that call in there. And Ms. Karen Amwat, a senior community development officer from Mukono, acknowledged that incorporating the views of the local people before setting up the markets will make them more effective, and that is where we did see that happening. And establishing markets and decent work spaces is one of the pillars also of the Greater Kampala Metropolitan Area Urban Development Program. And the other also the areas include enhancing mobility and accessibility through road upgrades, bolstering urban resilience with drainage infrastructure, and also as well as strengthening institutional capacity for coordinated planning, as well as investment in infrastructure. And that is where we did start happening. And now the Kampala and the Kampala also the development program is valued at 566 billion. That's an estimate of about 2.1 trillion, which includes a mix of loans and grants, which stand at about 518 millions allocated as loans, and we are seeing 48 millions, which is already coming out from a grant. And that program will further also be facilitated by a loan worth shillings for 2.66 million, which is an estimate of about 556.4 billion from Agence Française de Development, which is already another AFD program in there, which is aiming at bringing nothing but development to the country. And that means for those who are going to be implementing these programs, we would not expect the money just to go into waste like that. We are expecting to see tangible benefits of this money so that each and everyone can be in position to solely benefit from these funds in there. And that would also, at the end of the day, make people also really realize the benefit of development, and the development which each and everyone would want to see is the road sector be upgraded, and that would also really, at the end of the day, bring in the development which the world and the country is seeking to see in here. And that's where we're going to leave the discussion aside and still looking at also really some of the stories happening elsewhere. Remember, it being a Tuesday, so many things also continue to happen. And that is where we did see why us teachers have to wait longer for salary rise is another issue that we are seeing. Recently, we did have the World Teachers' Day, which was this month, where teachers did go on also really to make calls of addressing the salary disparities. And now President has once told teachers of humanities that also their salaries won't be enhanced soon, as they also continue investing funds in the country's priority areas like infrastructure. Teachers who are teaching arts must also not receive this message definitely also well in there. Now addressing hundreds of teachers during a belated World Teachers' Day teacher celebrations were held at Ulgogo Cricket Oval in Kampala at the weekend. Mr. Museveni also said the Ugandan government was implementing only priorities and scarcity areas also in there, and that is where we have to see the teachers teaching humanities waiting longer in now in July 22 or 2022. The government approved a salary increment that's for science teachers. So the salary teachers rise from 1.2 million, that's 4 million per month, compared to 900 million that also their counterparts teaching humanities are earning. And this has forced us teachers in government schools to lay down their tools, contesting a salary discrepancy. But up to date, nothing of that salary also is being addressed. And that means their hopes of having their salary also enhanced is facing, really, I don't know how to explain this, but it is also really facing uncertainty. And that means at the end of the day, the arts teachers are still not going to be happy, because if you look at science teacher who is earning 4 million, and they're literally doing the same things, and an arts teacher who is teaching history, geography, English, literature, is earning 900 million, and is expected to pay the children in good schools, is expected to sleep in a good house, is expected to eat good food. How, and maybe how sufficient is the 900,000? And that is where we did see the strike, which was also really done by arts teachers, being called off. But now the board that brings the teachers together, that is UNATU, also is still trying to pursue and make sure that salaries of the arts teachers is also enhanced in there. Now during the Teachers' Day celebration, that the president also explained that when he was also in the bush fighting against Dr. Milton Obote's regime in the early 90s, his rebel group faced so many challenges, but had to prioritize them in there. Remember, he is also really part of the humanities. He is also went from that area, and that is where teachers who are teaching arts always feel very much bad that they are being left out by a colleague who should have also understood their pain. And he said that it was also a bad idea for planners to split resources into smaller portions, especially at a time when the country is also striving to deal with the recovery of the economy and offering also mass education, mass vaccination, security for all, and access also to electricity, among other critical services that Ugandans need in there. And now the President Museveni also revealed that in 2006, the budget for water was small compared, and that's where it was injected into electricity and roads, because the latter meant for factories, and that's where we did start happening. And that means the President did go on to also talk about areas which are a bit critical and therefore need urgent solutions compared to others, and that is where we did start happening. And the other say the government's target is to pay all public servants well, but also increase the numbers of public servants also in these areas. They say the government is employing fewer teachers due to economic challenges, yet the country needs about 300,000 primary school teachers to achieve the teacher per ratio, which is currently at 1.50, and that is where we are seeing a teacher is also need to teach about 1 to 50 ratio, and that ratio is not being achieved as per now. And that calls for recruitment of more teachers, but due to the scarcity of resources, that is a bit impossible. Now, the 20 billion teachers circles, and the first lady also doubles as the Minister of Education and Sports, Ms. John Katam Museveni, also echoed the President's promise, saying the government is committed to improving the welfare of all employees in a phased manner, and that means, according to Janet Museveni, the teachers should be able to have hope as their matter is being addressed. Now, in a joint message for World Teachers Day, the heads of UNESCO, International Labour Organization, UNICEF, and the General, also the Secretary of Education International, noted that the declining recognition of teachers' profession is indeed an issue that needs to be dealt with, and officials added that the overall loss of appeal of teaching is as a profession compounded by low pay, excessive workloads, reduced autonomy, with driving talent individuals solely away from also profession, putting the quality from also the profession at risk. And that means today the teachers also are posing away from the teaching profession, and that is these calls were made during also the belated World Teachers Day, and since 1994, World Teachers Day has been marked in Uganda every 5th of October, and according to UNESCO, this day celebrates teachers, and it also really commemorates the anniversary of the adoption of 1966 International Labour Organization UNESCO recommendation concerning the status of teachers, which also sets backs also really on these issues in there, and that is why this day is celebrated to date. And we're leaving that discussion aside. We are heading for a short commercial break that will be ushering us into the final half of the discussions. My name is Farish Majid. Stay tuned as we bounce back shortly.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Jude Bellingham, Vinicius Jr., Lamine Yamal, Antoine Griezmann. La Liga comes to Star Times.
A wild celebration!
The big stars, the tiki-taka football, Real Madrid and Barcelona live in your living room.
Real Madrid, a team of dreams!
Catch all 380 games live and in HD on Sports Premium, Channel 259 and Channel 246. Starting this August 15th. Subscribe to StarTimes Classic or Smart Bouquet at 36,000 Uganda shillings to enjoy the football experience affordably. StarTimes Football and Limited Passion.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, welcome back, and we are already into the final half of today's discussions, and this is where we are going to be looking at some of the stories happening also internationally, and summarizing the day will be with stories in the world of sports, and this is where we are seeing the nights. And when we talk about the nights, it is only the men that understand. These are the nights of the men. Champions League is what I'm meaning, and definitely we shall be having games tonight, as Arsenal will be tussling it out with Shakhtar Donetsk tonight, and I will be letting you know maybe some of the other games that will also be coming tonight, and more details, of course, in the world of sports will be coming through. That is also from 2 to 3 p.m. That is with Owen Ezaga and Linda Suzy, who will be here to also give you what's happening, because if you look at these sports art pundits, definitely they also know what is happening right from the regional level up to international level. And therefore, they will be here to also give that comprehensive and detailed analysis of what's happening in the world of sports. But before that, we shall still be having also many other interesting programs. Remember, after here, we shall be having the Earls News Bulletin. That is with the team, where we shall be having Fete Manuel together with Mercy, who will be also giving that news bulletin. And therefore, after there, we shall be having many other interesting programs. Another request hour still shall be coming through. And this is where, for those who love music from northern Uganda, in parts of West Nile, Lango, Acholi, Karamoja, then definitely you should be in position to sort of wait for that program, where they will be giving that best song that you want to listen to, and you can still make that request by also dialing the number that will be running on your screens. And you can also be in position to also send a message, where DJ Jero together with Olivia Yuji will be in position to also read through some of those comments and also see which song that you would also want to listen to, maybe to your ears in there, and I will be playing that obviously for you in there. And that is now where we are bouncing back to also see what is happening in the papers in these remaining minutes. If I can be in position to also let you know on some of the stories happening, you will have many other interesting stories going to happen. And all this is where we are now seeing tourism board, hotel owners, lock-ons over new licenses. Is another story we are seeing. But when we talk about tourism, you know that West Nile indeed has potentials in acting as a tourism destination. But what is lacking is, one, mapping, then secondly, marketing the places, and you have also the facility, the regional waterfalls. These are waterfalls that are not known. We have Mirador, we have Oluko Falls, we have Kwenyika, we have Dubu. All these are in West Nile sub-region. Mountain Wati, we have beautiful sceneries, the trees, all this are acting as potential tourism sites. Even a Jai Game Reserve in Madokoro district is indeed another marvelous opportunity which many people should be able to solely benefit from. And in most cases, we are not also benefiting from these facilities. And it is because, as West Nile, we are not also maybe proud, first of all, of our region, and that is why we are not visiting these places. And that is why we expect the government now, most especially the Uganda Tourism Board, to come back and also really analyze on some of these facilities and to make sure that these facilities are first of all mapped and then developed. And that would also help attract more Ugandans to come in here as tourists. And that would be in position to also really make sure that people who are going to visit these places also definitely understand what exactly they will be in position to also really see when they visit West Nile sub-region. And that is where we're also talking about this. And to make sure that people solely visit the places in there, because if you look at these facilities, definitely tourism, the hotel owners play a great role in developing tourism. Why? The hospitality industry is very much critical, and the less than hospitality without it, then we're not going to be having tourists. Because once these tourists coming, they will need places where they want to sleep. First of all, that's in terms of accommodation, in terms of food. Definitely, they will need these hotels, and that is why the monies also these hotels are charged must not be very much higher. And that's why we're seeing a Uganda Tourism Board and now hotel owners locking horns in there. That is over taxes. But how can we be able to make these taxes also really affordable to those hotel owners? And that is why we are saying that is we need to see these issues be harmonized, because if they're not harmonized, then that would be very, very much bad. And people living along these areas, by the way, should also start looking for monies to establish investments that will be acting as hotels. Because without these facilities, then we are going to be seeing people also missing out on some of these opportunities. And that is why we're expecting people to also develop these facilities and have also mapped, first of all, and marketed well, so that solely many Ugandans can be in position to solely visit these facilities. Now, that's where we're going to leave the discussion aside, as we are just counting down about 20 minutes to wind up with these discussions, and that will be ushering us into the next program, that is of the AL's News Bulletin. And before that, we are looking at also a story here that's on the monitor, where police, local leaders implicate army in Tororo cattle theft, is another story we're seeing, where the police and local leaders in Tororo district have accused the army of involvement in the rampant theft of livestock in Tororo district India. Now the allegations surfaced after the arrest of a key suspect in the livestock theft, who was reportedly found hiding in a Uganda Post Defense Forces detachment, that's at the mile 6, and that is where we did see also really police officers now implicating soldiers also really for promoting the theft in there. Mr. Moses Mugwe, the Bukedi South Regional Police spokesperson, said we tracked him down to his home also in Katarama C Village, Osia Sub-County, using our sniper dogs, but established that he was hiding in the army detachment, and that is where we did see that happening. And now the UPDF, also Eastern Region spokesperson, Mr. Major Isaac Okware, confirmed the arrest of a civilian at an army detachment in Tororo, but declined also to provide further details, saying the matter is being handled also by the office of the resident district commissioner, who is the head of security in the district. And now the suspects was arrested also after police intercepted Toyota Nadia, carrying also the carcasses of 6 cows from Katarali, still recovered also those, and he also already had fled the area. And that is where we did see also police investigations, so that the stolen livestock, including cattle, goats, and poultry, are mainly transported to Mbale city and neighboring Kenya for sale, and that is where we did see that happening. But how do we see this going on with also the notice of security? And it's really quite sad. And Mr. Mugo said that the thieves mostly also from Mbale collaborate with local contracts also in Tororo, who have then also planned the raids before also calling the counterparts for execution. And Mr. John Ekeya, the Tororo AC5 chairman, expressed concern over the increasing cattle thefts, noting that between 80 and 100 cattle were stolen in the past months in there. Now, last week, 16 heads of cattle were reported stolen, and some of which also had been purchased through government also programs, such as the Party Development Model and Myoga. And now the surge is also really in livestock thefts, also threatens to undermine the livestock programs, aimed at reducing also really poverty in Tororo. And this is already, that's where we start happening. Now the worst affected areas include some Mela, Akopor, Makaju, and Osia, among others, also where we're seeing cases of cattle theft being very much rampant. But how do we see this happening, and how can we be in position to solely address these issues of rampant cattle thefts, if at all we don't want to see them go on? And now what is the impact? And last week we did see alone 16 heads of cattle were also already reported stolen, some of which had been also purchased through government programs, the Party Development Model and the Myoga. And how are these beneficiaries going to be paying this money back, and how it's going to be affecting? That's also according to also really statistics. Also really, Tororo is one of the areas where poverty levels are very high in the country, and this is by the UBOS report, which we did see happening in there. Now the worst affected areas have also as well been reported, and this is in Akopor, Makuju, Malaba, and Osia, and not forgetting Marukapite, which are areas also where we are seeing all these cases already being very, very much vivid in there. But how do we deal with these issues is what matters in there. But how, at the end of the day, are we going to be seeing this happening is really need another area which we feel people must be in position to really understand in there. And that is one area, as we get to move on with the show, we need to really let you know of what's happening. That is where we're going to be leaving the discussion aside. And now heading to Saudi Arabia, where Saudi Arabia to pardon jailed Ugandans is another story that we are seeing happening in there, where a number of Ugandans have also as well been arrested in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and this is where we are also going to be seeing a known number to be said to be pardoned. And now we are seeing the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is to pardon a known number of Ugandans held in their deportation centers and prisons also before reporting them to Uganda after negotiation with the government. And now the number also of Ugandans to be pardoned will be known 60 days from now, after Saudi Arabia also has carried out verification of the population of Ugandan migrants living in their country. In the State Minister for Labor, Employment and Industrial Relations, Ms. Esther Nyakun, said, I've already also have the pleasure to announce that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has agreed to pardon also the Ugandan migrants who have been stranded also in deportation centers and prison centers across the country of Saudi Arabia. And that is hope indeed for those Ugandans who have also been arrested in there, because for those who have traveled or those who have heard stories of how these Ugandans live in this country, most of the migrants who go to work in as domestic workers, in most cases they're subject to pain. Others have to escape. In most cases also they land in trouble after being arrested, and others have as well lost their organs. And all this has been happening in the Middle East, the Gulf region at large. But in Saudi Arabia, we are now seeing hope. Most of those who have been in prisons, now they are being freed. And now this decision comes after a meeting held between the Ugandan delegation led by Esther Nyakun and Saudi Arabia's Minister for Human Justice and Social Development, that is Mr. Ahmed Al-Rauju, in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia's capital last week. And that is where this Uganda estimates that there are about 150,000 Ugandans living in Saudi Arabia, many of whom also have been working as maids. And Uganda and Saudi Arabia have now had an agreement that is to allow labor migrants to move to Riyadh. And however, many of the challenges have been also affected, which also is as a result of trafficking, where a number of Ugandans are said to be trafficked in Saudi Arabia illegally, making it difficult also to know the exact number. And even also those who work as maids have already traveled to Saudi Arabia legally, have been also complaining about the human rights violations by their employers. And that is one area which I feel must also be able to deal with. And in some instances, migrants have lost their lives, while others have also been dismissed from their jobs without pay, leaving them also unable to return back to Uganda. And that is where others have as well been arrested. And now we are also going to be seeing them now returning back to the country. And Ms. Esther Nyakun, said Saudi Arabia promised to repatriate the stolen Ugandans back to East African country, and they will now be returned back to Uganda. And last week, the Ugandan Security Agency's Labor Ministry and that of the Foreign Affairs established a committee to ensure that Ugandans also are not trafficked into Saudi Arabia and in the Middle East because of some of the devastating impacts and some of the devastating results that some of them have been able to be subjected to. Because if you really know and if you have heard of some of the stories Ugandan migrants go through, then definitely you know that indeed these people have been going through pain. And it is really indeed a good time for them to now be returned back to the country. And recently the courts in Uganda tasked the labor export companies to ensure that the rights of the people for whom they find jobs abroad are also really well kept for. Because if you look at the welfare, sometimes many of these Ugandans go through, then you will really realize that indeed these people are going through pain. And that is why it is high time now that the government also really deal with those issues in there. Now leaving that story aside, Uganda and China signed a deal to boost farming. In the international story we're seeing, and now the Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Industry and Fisheries, abbreviated MAIF, has signed an MOU with also the China Communications Construction Company Limited to also really enhance Uganda's agricultural capacity, and the move also aims at development of the post-harvest handling infrastructure, small-scale farming, and also really, as well as dealing with agricultural mechanization. And this is where we are going to be seeing Ugandans benefiting from that. And now the agreement marks a significant step in strengthening Uganda's food security and improving the livelihoods of farmers. And that is where today, if you talk about markets, many Ugandans have been pulled out of the market, out of farming because of markets. After planting the tree, maybe the crops, they find it difficult to access markets. And at the end of the day, we see their crops getting bad. And now that's where we're now seeing the Chinese government and the Ugandan counterparts signing an MOU to also really deal with that in there. And now challenges have also been as well as affecting. And Mr. Ronald Segawa Jagenda, the acting permanent secretary of MAIF, underscored also the importance of partnerships. He emphasized also that the agreement represents a commitment that's to reducing the substantial losses incurred by farmers due to inadequate post-harvest handling and storage facilities. And Mr. Jagenda did go on to welcome everyone and every partner also to also address also some of these issues. And he said in the initiative also that this is going to be serving as a milestone in dealing with the issues of post habits. And now the initiative will also enable Uganda to also leverage modern agricultural technologies aimed at improving what we call technologies, and that's also going to be stabilizing food security and definitely also dealing with issues of food prices, and that is where now the challenge of market is going to be dealt with. And I hope at the end of the day, these are not remain on paper. In most cases, some of these ideas are very beautiful like this, but they only remain on paper. When it reaches time for implementation, we do not realize the benefit of all this. And that is where I think with this one, we expect implementation to be more than the talking in here. Now the MOU builds on previous discussions between the Uganda and China aimed at fostering a cultural cooperation, and it also really follows a series of high-level also meetings, including a visit by Uganda's agriculture minister that is also to China, and that is one area which I feel should also really be dealt with exclusively, and that is all aiming at improving the welfare of the Ugandan farmers in there. And I hope this will not remain on paper. We also want to see this also really actualized in there to make sure that each and everyone benefits also really from these issues in there, and that is one area where I will be leaving the discussion aside. And remember, we are still following up on this and to make sure that all this is actually dealt with, and also all the Ugandans get to benefit from these beautiful plans that are being drawn in there. And that is where we are going to leave the discussion aside with, and to look at some of the stories also happening in the world of sports. And this is where tonight we start seeing a game. Before we give you what's happening in the night of men, we still need to look at what's happening in the world of football big league. And the regional leagues are said to be returning anytime from now, and we are still seeing them also happening. And remember, as being Tuesday, we shall be seeing games happening, and that's where we shall be seeing games happening in the world of Champions League. But before that, we need to also look at what's happening in the world of football big league. I do understand that also the games will be returning also this week in there on the 24th, which is already on Thursday. We shall be seeing also the games between Blacks Power and Kataka, which will be on the big league. And after that, we shall be seeing on Friday Arua Hill on the Paraka Football Club taking on Tunga Saze. Meanwhile, on the 27th, we shall be seeing Arua Hill taking on Tunga Saze. Boma will be taking on Karo Karunji. That will be on 27th. That was on Saturday. And still, we shall be seeing Busoga United taking on Chiinda Boys. Still on the 27th of this month, Gaddafi will be taking on Midgo Calvary. That will be on 27th. Maida will be taking on Paida Black Angels. That will still be on 27th. And that's also really another game that we must also follow up on. And therefore, we shall be still seeing these games go on. And meanwhile, sometimes you got the Premier League. Still, we shall be seeing games returning. And that is where we shall be seeing the Express Football Club taking on Lugazi Football Club, which is a game that is actually today. And tomorrow we shall be seeing other games also go on in there. And tomorrow we shall be seeing Bright Stars taking on Barra City. And that is where we are going to be seeing the Sometimes Uganda Premier League continue in there. But somebody will be asking, how are these games going on? I really want to show you that Sometimes Uganda Premier League is actually getting interesting. And that is where, for you who loves soccer, then definitely you shouldn't miss out on these opportunities to understand what is happening. And maybe in the world of sports in there, you will be able to know that there is really a lot more happening in there. And tonight we shall be seeing games in the Champions League. And I hope you who loves the night definitely is getting ready to also really be part of also really what is happening there. But before that, last night we had a game in the English Premier League, which was between Nottingham Forest and Crystal Palace, which game was won by Nottingham Forest by a goal to nil. And that is where we are still seeing the English Premier League getting better and interesting in there. And that brings us to also what is happening in the world of men. We shall be seeing a game tonight that is between AC Milan and Club Brugge, as AS Monaco will be taking on FK Skavena Zveda. And not forgetting Arsenal Football Club, which is actually one of the biggest games tonight, as they will be taking on Shakhtar Donetsk at Emirates Stadium in there. Aston Villa as well be taking on Bologna. And that's where we're going to be seeing Girona taking on Slovenia Bratislava. Juventus will be taking on VfB Stuttgart. Paris Saint-Germain will be playing against PSV Eindhoven. Real Madrid will be playing Borussia Dortmund. And Sturm Graz will be taking on Sporting CP in there. And these are the games that we shall be seeing tonight on the Champions League also in there. These are still the group stages. And we are still slowly following up on to see how these games will be going on. Remember Arsenal, which is actually one of the interesting games. They will be having the services of Saliba, who got red card in the last game, and somebody out there may be asking, is he going to be playing? Yes, he's going to be playing because the red card he got was in a domestic league, not in Champions League, and therefore he will be featuring for the Arsenal side tonight in there, and we shall be letting you know that tomorrow and how this game will be ending, and more details of what's happening in the world of sports will be coming through on the whistle time with Owen Ezaga, and Linda Susie will be here from 2 to 3 p.m. But before in here, we shall be having lots of programs, and after here, we shall be having the Oilers and News Bulletin with Fete Emmanuel. Thereafter, we shall be having the Northern Request Hour. Olivia UG with DJ Jarot will be here to also play for you music from Northern Uganda. The Lembangea also still shall be coming through at midday, and thereafter, we shall be having the Street Talk with MC Sarge, and then the whistle time, therefore, will be following from 2 to 3 p.m. And from 2 to 3 p.m., and we shall be having the whistle time, and thereafter the movie time will be coming through, ushering us into Chukuchuku. Chukuchuku will be taking us through into the Nilcast from 7 p.m. To 8. Thereafter, the Kelele Show will be coming through to summarize the entire course of the day in there with also really a lot of jazz, and we hope also really you've been positioned to also be part of all these interesting programs, and to also keep you informed, entertained, and educated as well in there. With that, we come to the end of today's discussions. I want to wish you the very best. Up next is the Oilers News Bulletin with Fete Emmanuel. I'm out.